Gone girl, Miss Janet. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about Janet Jackson, who apparently there's this old story that came out regarding Janet Jackson and the fact that she wanted Tupac to take a HIV test. Well, they said an AIDS test before, they kissed in Poetic Justice. Now, I remember this story came out eons ago, back in the day in the 90s. This was like a old wives' tale. I never knew if it was true or not. There was always saying like, oh, it was just completely made up. I thought it was debunked. Well, apparently, there is someone by the name of Jeff Pearlman who has a book coming out called Only God Can Judge Me: The Many Lives of Tupac Shakur, October 21st, 2025. So, what I'm wondering is the book out today? Because today's October 21st. So, I don't know. It doesn't really say like that, but it just says October 21st in the thing. And shout out to the Hollywood Reporter who had a whole excerpt from the book that we're actually going to go through. And as a class, and I'm gonna just read it as to what he's got in this book and see if y'all are interested in wanting to read it. Funny enough, I was thinking about wanting to kind of combine this with like after talking about Kevin Federline and the other book, but it worked out the way it worked out. So let's just continue. So in the aftermath of his breakout performance as Bishop in the film Juice, a young Tupac Shakur was plucked by director John Singleton to star as a postman named Lucky in Poetic Justice. The movie shot over a 3-month span in California and co-starred Janet Jackson. And also, Regina King was in it. At the time, one of the world's biggest pop stars, the experience was, politely stated, a rocky one. The following is an advanced excerpt from Jeff Pearlman's Only God Can Judge Me: The Many Lives of Tupac Shakur. Now, prior to John Singleton's focusing on Tupac, the young director's first choice for leading man had been Ice Cube, because, he did Boys in the Hood. So it was like, after doing that, then, John Singleton's like, oh, yeah, he did good as Doughboy and Boys in the Hood. Let me just see if I can cast him in the situation. But they said it was a brief pursuit. Cube read the script, liked it, but took issue with some elements of the character that Singleton refused to change. So in that case, Ice Cube did not play the part of Lucky. So now, before making a formal offer to Pac, Singleton requested that he and Janet come to Reed's office for a screen test. It was the first time the rapper and the pop star met, and they seemed to have a nice rapport. They spoke about music, about acting, about the film. Tupac was reserved and warm, saying, quote, "We knew we wanted both, but the chemistry had to work," said Reed. It felt like it did. I remember him just being willing to do anything and everything he needed to give all of us the confidence he was right for the part. He made you feel like you were the most important person in the room. Later that night, long after his meeting with Jackson, Tupac kicked back with his Oakland crew and over joints and drinks, told them she was one of the hottest bitches he had ever seen, and he would most certainly have sex with her. Bet on it, he said. Following 2 weeks of rehearsal, Poetic Justice shot from April 14, 1992 until July 4th, 1992. Along with Tupac and Janet Jackson, the film starred another pair of relative silver screen newcomers. Well, I did mention Regina King, coming off a successful half-decade stint on the TV show 227, and the stand-up comedian Joe Torre. Initially, Singleton pushed the foursome to become a unit, saying he wanted them to have dinners and understand the intricacies of one another. Saying, quote, "There was definitely a kinship," said Tori. "Regina, Pac, and I hung. Janet, not as much. And I think, being honest, it was hard for Tupac. Janet was a star. She was the one with her own trailer, her own this, her own that. A little standoffish. And Tupac also knew that Janet was making a lot more than he was, but it definitely rubbed him the wrong way. He thought they should be equals. She didn't share that." Well, this is what they do in Hollywood. It's always about who's the biggest star. And Janet was one of the biggest girls on the planet. Around that time, when did that movie come out? Wasn't this around the Janet era, or did Janet come out later on? Because they said it's shot from April 1992 until July 4th, 1992. So I'm thinking the movie probably came out shortly after, I think, in maybe 90. So around that era, that was when the Janet album, I think, was conspiring. And plus, she was one of the biggest stars on the planet. So yeah, she was getting on her own stuff. But I would have been like that too, which is like, yeah, if you're making this film, I don't necessarily know what the budget was, so I'm assuming it was probably like an independent film. That, yeah, y'all should have probably been maybe making the same amount or whatever the case was, but I guess to woo her, she had to get paid more. So, um, Tupac definitely did not have warm feelings for Janet, said Dupree Kelly, a friend and rapper from Lords of the Underground. Saying, I remember him talking about her. I got a car service bringing me to work every day. This chick has helicopters landing her on set. Every day I'm eating chicken and waffles. She's getting her stuff catered. He made it clear he was pissed about getting less than Janet, and John Cothran, who played Uncle Earl, said to me it seemed absurd because I didn't even know who the hell he was. Well, there's also a fact. It's the fact that we knew Janet, but we ain't know Tupac. Now we know him today because he's like some big old rapper and more infamous than anything, and has been sealed into this whole icon status. Him and Biggie and that sort of thing. You know the history of hip hop. But at the time, it was like, yeah, nobody really knew who the hell Tupac was. We knew who Janet was because she comes from royalty with that whole family. So when D.Y. Jackson was pulling in seven figures, Tupac made less than $100,000. For much of shooting, the cast was lodged at the Lowe's Santa Monica, and Tupac was placed in the smallest available room. Jackson had a suite. There were about five of us black employees were called Lessa McRoyal Frowther, a reservation desk manager, and they'd always send one of us to ask Tupac to turn down his music or lighten up with the marijuana smoke. Other guests were complaining. From a talent standpoint, the Janet Tupac financial gap was unjustified. For all her stage presence, Janet was a one-note actress. She arrived on time, remembered her lines, but brought little to the table. Tupac was the opposite. He was the best part of the movie. Every scene he's in, he owns, said Jennifer Lewis, the actress who played the mother of Tupac's character. Lucky, but he was also chronically late and unwilling to memorize his lines. Once in a unique display of chutzpah, as they would say, he arrived an hour behind schedule to film a highly anticipated love scene with Jackson. The middle of his chest was covered with a large, gooey piece of gauze. When asked the cause of the injury, Tupac lifted the paper to reveal his new tattoo, one he had done impulsively the previous night. It read 50 ninjas atop a rifle. And you know, ninjas ain't the word I'm referring to. Now, Singleton was apoplectic and told Tupac the tattoo not only violated his contract, but made it seem tricky to shoot. Yeah, because it's like your body is supposed to be what it is when you playing this part. Like Lucky ain't supposed to have no damn chest tattoo. So what are you doing? Like Tupac was running around here being rebellious, and you could do that in your own time when you making your music and you being the rebellious rapper. But when you in here doing this part, you are lucky until we say it's a wrap on this damn thing. Then you can go back to being Tupac. But you ain't supposed to be coming on no set with no new shit put on your body, and I'm supposed to just roll with it. And you mad because what? Because you feel like you should be paid. How they said seven figures. So it's like, sir, you just starting out in the movie industry. This is literally your second film. And when hell you making as much as Janet? So what am I supposed to do? Asked the director. Fuck if I know, Tupac replied, then stormed off in his tiny trailer. According to Tory, as the days passed, Tupac's attention waned. His tardiness increased from a few minutes here and there to a few hours several times a week. He not only failed to memorize the script, he tried ad-libbing far too often. He was high all the time, drunk some of the time, and it showed. As a musician, being impaired can inspire creativity. As an actor, it lends itself to sloppiness. He was usually ready when he got to set, said Cothran, if he got to set. Though not in Tupac's class as an actor, Janet was a pro by a byproduct of spending almost 2 decades in the spotlight and knowing what it meant to have a crew of people depend on you. Predictably, she was turned off by Tupac, by his approach, by his weird efforts at being sexual, by his need to always steal attention. He was a child in a man's body. It all felt like some sort of act, an insecure kid trying to prove his worth. It was exhausting. And that's pretty much what it was giving, which basically makes sense as to why Janet was like, "Oh yeah, I'm not hanging out with you. I know y'all want to make it like a unit that we all kind of need to get together because we're supposed to be like friends in the movie, and you want that chemistry to kind of feel natural for me hanging out in real life. But I'm not hanging out with this little man baby. Not when he doing all of this, and you're gonna mess up my reputation when I got a lot on the line. Is this be and you know, there's a lot. I feel like people can't even do it down. Like a lot of y'all still can't distinguish the Janet, the person from the artist, and that sort of thing. And a lot of her just being there attached to his mess, that's some guilt by association. And she's like, I'm not gonna be no, I don't want no parts of this man baby and his buffoonery. So Ish hit the fan late in the process when it was time to film a kissing scene. In the days beforehand, Tupac talked nonstop about overwhelming Jackson with his lips and tongue. He thought he was being cute. She did not. 3 days before the sequence was to be shot, Nicolaitis was summoned to Jackson's trailer where she sat with her fiance, a dancer named Renee Elizondo Jr. Saying, Tupac's reputation that he's a cat about town, Jackson said, and I don't want to swap saliva with him until I'm really sure that he's healthy and clean. Okay, Nicolaitis replied, have you talked to John about it? Jackson looked distinguished. John and I walked off. John just walked off when I mentioned it, she said, so I'm asking you to handle it. The 43-year-old Nicolaitis did not relish what was to follow. He had worked on a bevy of high-profile films, including When Harry Met Sally and The Princess Bride, and knew all too well the wrath of an actor's ego. He took a couple of deep breaths and walked over to Tupac, who was sitting alone in his trailer. So, Tupac, he said. Tupac looked up. Just spit this out to you, man. He said, Janet wants you to have an AIDS test before you kiss her. You kidding? Tupac asked. No, said Nicolaitis. Fuck her, Tupac said. I ain't doing shit for that bitch. Tell her to go fuck herself. Okay. Nicolaitis said. He prepared to leave, and Tupac flashed a big smile. So you'll do it? Nicolaitis asked optimistically. Oh no, Tupac replied. I honestly think he found it amusing, Nicolaitis said. And the truth is, I can't blame Janet for asking. It was the early 90s and people were still dying of AIDS, and Tupac, God love him, had a reputation. But he never got the test. Okay, well, I mean, and they ended up kissing in the movie, but here's the thing. I thought, like, yeah, because this old story when stuff was coming out, I'm sitting there like, but then Janet came out with a song where she was talking about her friends died of AIDS and, that sort of thing from the Velvet Rope album and all this other stuff. And this was still her having that mindset of like, okay, y'all were kissing. You ain't gonna get AIDS from kissing, ma'am. Now, if y'all out here having unprotected sex, which you're not because you're acting, you're not really having this. It's not a porn film, so you're kissing him in the movie. You're doing a fake love scene, so you can't get AIDS that way, sis. So if that turned out to be true, it's just ignorant on her damn part. But yeah, that's a piece of the book. I don't know if there's any more to reveal about that whole situation, but I definitely want to hear from y'all. What do you guys think of this story regarding Janet Jackson and the rumors regarding the fact that, yeah, she asked Tupac to oh wait, hold on. Why did I put that up? um she asked well, she didn't ask him, she asked somebody else to ask him to go get the AIDS test because she was like, yeah, cat about time. I'm not trying to get caught up in his diseases and things. But it's like, sis, you can't get AIDS from kissing. But I guess now they know this because it's 2025. Although I'm sure there's some ignorant people out here who still don't understand that you can't get AIDS from kissing. So let me know what you guys think of this story in the comments down below.